My name is Carlos Ernesto Michaeletis, and they call me L, my alias. To put it that way, nothing takes away from me or anything turns me on. I am what I am, and I'm sure of what I am. I'm not proud of what I am, but neither can I cry because I'm not here. Life goes on. Do you understand? It goes on as if it were El Chapo. Old Lynn also managed to escape from prison. But how is this possible? Stay until the end of the video and find out. Before starting, leave your registration with the like button and subscribe to our stories. They'll surely catch you. Now, activate the bell so we can begin. Old Lynn, respected and feared leader of the Mara, found himself at a crossroads. After years of leading the gang with a firm hand, he had been pressured by one of his trusted men and handed over to the authorities. Now he faced a long sentence in a prison where the law of the street had no place. But Lynn was not a man who gave up easily. With cunning and determination, he planned his daring escape to CECOT, a place where he hoped to find redemption and a new opportunity. Lynn's escape plan was hatched in the shadows among loyal contacts and carefully hidden resources. With the help of some gang members who were still loyal to him, he began to plot his escape route. The first step was to ensure he had a safe place to take refuge once out of prison. To do this, he contacted an old friend in CECOT, a man who owed him a favor and would be willing to support him in his time of need. The next step was to find a way out of prison without raising suspicion. Lane knew he needed to create a distraction, something that would divert the guard's attention and give him a chance to escape. To do this, he planned a carefully orchestrated riot using his men inside the prison to sow the chaos and confusion necessary for their escape. On the day of the riot, Old Lynn put his plan into action while his men began the revolt in a wing of the prison. He made his way to the exit, avoiding the guards, seizing every opportunity to advance toward freedom with agility and determination. He overcame the obstacles that stood in his way, always maintaining the calm and clarity of mind that had characterized him as the leader of the Maras. Once outside the prison, Old Lynn met with his friend at an agreed-upon location. The friend provided him with a vehicle and supplies for his trip to CECOT, where he would be safe from the authorities and have the opportunity to start over. How did the police react when they learned of Old Lynn's escape? The news of Old Lynn's escape from prison spread like wildfire through the ranks of the police. The shocked and bewildered officers rushed to gather. In an emergency meeting, to discuss the situation and devise a plan to capture the fugitive. At first, many of the officers could not believe what they were hearing. Old Man Lynn, the leader of the gang, had managed to escape from a high-security prison, defying all the security and surveillance measures that had been implemented to keep him under control. The news was met with disbelief and dismay, as Lynn's capture was considered a top priority for the police department. Once the reality of the situation became apparent, the officers sprang into action. Search and seizure teams were deployed throughout the city with orders to find the fugitive and bring him back to jail. Checkpoints were set up on major roads, and patrols were intensified in areas where there was suspicion that Lynn might be hiding. The news of Old Man Lynn's escape also had an impact on the community. Fear and anger gripped many residents who feared retaliation from the gang once Lynn was free. Some businesses closed their doors, and the streets emptied as people took refuge in their homes, fearful of what the future might hold. Meanwhile, Old Man Lynn advanced towards CECOT, following his carefully laid plan for his escape. As news of his escape spread, the pressure on the police to capture him increased with each passing minute without news of his whereabouts. This was a constant reminder of their failure and a challenge to their authority. Finally, after several days of intense searching, the police received a lead on Old Man Lynn's whereabouts. A man matching his description had been spotted on a lonely road near CECOT. Without missing a beat, the officers went to the scene hoping to capture the fugitive before he could escape once more. Upon arriving at the scene, the police found Old Man Lynn calm and resigned, awaiting his fate despite. His escape from capture had left an indelible mark on the history of the police department. How his fellow gang members reacted to learning that he was back on the streets. The news that Old Man Lin was back on the streets spread quickly among the gang members. For many, it was a shock and a surprise, as they believed their leader was serving a long prison sentence. However, for others, it was a cause for celebration and joy, as they saw Lin's return as an opportunity to restore the gang's power and influence. At first, there was some disbelief among the gang members. Some thought it was just a rumor or a false alarm, but it was soon confirmed that Old Man Lin was back on the streets and ready to resume his position as leader. For many, this was a cause for relief, as they had felt the lack of leadership during his absence. However, not everyone received the message. With joy, some members of the gang saw Lin's return as a threat to their own power and status. Within the organization, they feared that with his return, Lin would attempt to reorganize the gang on his own terms and displace those who had assumed leadership roles in his absence. As news spread, two factions formed within the gang: those who supported Old Man Lin's return and those who saw him as a threat. Tension between the two groups grew quickly, fueled by rumors and suspicions about Lin's intentions and his ability to maintain control over the gang. For those who supported Lin, his return represented an opportunity to restore the gang's past glory. They saw him as a strong and charismatic leader capable of uniting the gang and confronting their enemies with determination and courage. They were willing to follow him wherever necessary to ensure dominance. The gang in the territory, on the other hand, those who saw Lin as a threat began to plan their own strategy to counter his return. Some attempted to establish alliances with other criminal groups to increase their power and protect themselves from any attempt by Lin to regain control. Others began to secretly plot, seeking ways to weaken Lin's position within the gang and secure their own power as the situation grew more tense. Lin found himself in a difficult position. On the one hand, he had a desire to restore the gang's unity and power. But on the other hand, he had to deal with the distrust and hostility of those who saw his return as a threat. He decided to take swift and decisive action to re-establish his authority and secure his position as the undisputed leader of the gang. Link called an emergency meeting with all members of the gang and spoke frankly about his return. He assured them that his sole objective was to strengthen the gang and protect its members. He asked them to follow him in this new phase of the organization. His speech was received with applause and acclaim, and many of those who had previously doubted him were now willing to support him unconditionally. With the renewed support of the gang, the old Link began to reorganize the organization's structure and operations. He eliminated those who had conspired against him and promoted those who had demonstrated loyalty and commitment. Under his leadership, the gang grew stronger and regained its dominant position in the territory. The return of the old Link was a pivotal moment in the history of the gang. His ability to unite his followers and restore unity and power demonstrated his skill as a leader and his determination to protect those under his command. Although his return was not without its challenges, he managed to overcome them and secure his position as one of the most respected and feared leaders in the criminal world. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, we invite you to give us a like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. We continue with what was said on the news when they learned that someone so dangerous was back. The news of Old Lin's return to the streets was a hot topic on local and national newscasts. News anchors, with expressions of concern and seriousness, informed the audience about the escape of the gang leader and highlighted the danger his return represented. Reporters on the ground interviewed local residents and security experts to get their opinions on the situation. Many expressed concern about the impact Old Lin's return could have on the community, especially in terms of public safety and the increase in criminal activity in the area. The newscasts also, they highlighted the response of the authorities that they emphasized the efforts to capture the fugitive as soon as possible. Information was provided on the deployment of special units and the collaboration with law enforcement agencies nationwide to locate Old Lin and end his threat. The audience was also reminded of Old Lin's history and profile, highlighting his violent past and criminal history. Specific cases in which he had been linked to acts of extreme violence were mentioned, and the public was warned not to approach him if sighted, as he was considered extremely dangerous. The social and political impact of Old Lin's return was discussed. The effectiveness of prison security measures and the need for reforms to prevent similar escapes in the future were also discussed. The unit's response and the importance of remaining calm and collaborating with authorities to ensure the safety of prisoners were also discussed. The return of Old Lin to the streets triggered a series of reactions and repercussions both within the Mara gang and in the community at large. For members of the gang, his return was greeted with joy and renewed loyalty, while for his enemies, he represented a latent threat on the streets. The news generated fear and anxiety among residents who feared for their safety and that of their families. In the media, the return of Old Lin was a topic of great interest and concern. Newscasts reported in detail on the escape of the Mara leader, highlighting his dangerousness and the impact his return could have on public safety. Interviews were conducted with security experts, and the measures being taken to capture the fugitive as soon as possible were discussed. The return of Old Lin also had an impact on the authorities, who intensified their efforts to locate him. Special units arrived, and we collaborated with law enforcement agencies nationwide to carry out the capture. However, despite all efforts, Old Man Lin remained at large, which generated concern and tension in the community. So we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day until next time.